The reign of the five good emperors is considered the apex of Roman power. From the end of the 1st century AD to the end of the 2nd century, five men ruled over Rome in a system of adoptive succession instead of the old hereditary system that proved to be remarkably stable politically and consistently produced emperors that were fairly competent rulers. This is a time of true titans of Roman history. Think about Trajan, Marcus Aurelius, or Hadrian. And then we have the first of these five emperors, an old man called Nerva, who ruled for a little over a year. He's, very understandably, overshadowed by his successors, but historians still give old Nerva a place in this prestigious list. Why is that? Well, let's have a look at some of his coins and try to figure it out. To understand Nerva's great reputation, despite being emperor for such a short time, we need to have some historical context. Here we have a coin from Nerva's predecessor, Domitian. Domitian was the last of the Flavian dynasty. He ruled for 15 years, from 81 to 96. He had a pretty solid reputation with the army. He was reasonably popular with the common people, despite some of his edicts trying to improve Roman morals, not being very well received. He was, however, hated by the Senate. Domitian wanted to rule alone. He wanted to rule by himself. He prosecuted and executed many senators who would get on his way, and this eventually led to his assassination, perpetrated by the Roman nobility. The end of the dynasty without a designated heir meant a power vacuum that had just formed, and that generally ended up in civil war. The Senate, however, acted quickly. They gathered the very same day Domitian was killed and hailed one of their own as emperor, an old man, childless, Marcus Cocceius Nerva. Nerva was everything the Senate needed in order to calm down the political situation after Domitian's turbulent reign. He was a respectable, level-headed man, maybe not the best public speaker, but a competent politician, serving as consul twice before becoming emperor. Most importantly, he was old and childless, so he wouldn't be around for very long, nor would he cause any major trouble, and there were no potentially problematic heirs once he was gone. In a way, and I'm being quite liberal in this statement, Nerva was a very short-lived restoration of the Republic. After all, he was a senator himself, but under the facade of the imperial system that was in place. He reverted Domitian's death sentences, restored properties from the elites that were confiscated, reduced some of the taxes that were imposed on the people under the Flavians, a very popular move that had some negative impact on the imperial finances. When looking at it under this perspective, Nerva calmed the waters. We should give the man some praise. Sometimes all you need to do is not messing up a balance of power that was working relatively well under the Flavian emperors. And since we're talking about Nerva's early reign, this is a good clue for us to take a look at today's first coin. This is a denarius, struck in 97 AD in the main mint of Rome. Coins of the five good emperors are very popular with collectors, and fortunately, they're quite abundant. The empire was doing well, and the mints were spewing coins like never before. Nerva's coins are the hardest to get simply due to time constraints. The man was in charge for a little over a year, so there wasn't a lot of time to mint his coins, but they're still relatively common and easy to find, just a bit more expensive if compared to coins of later emperors in a similar condition. On the obverse, we have the laureate bust of the emperor. It's quite easy to identify the bust of Nerva due to his very prominent nose and his somewhat saggy cheeks of the old man that he was. On the legends, we have his regnal name, Imperator Nerva Caesar Augustus, Pontifex Maximus Tribunicia Potestas Iterum, Consul Tertium Pater Patriae. As for the reverse, we have a seated image of Salus. Salus was the goddess of health and well-being. Maybe this reverse was chosen as a wish of good health for the emperor, as he was already in frail health when he assumed the purple. But it could also mean a wish for the metaphorical well-being of the Roman state. Notice that Sallust is holding a bunch of wheat stalks. This could be connected to one of Nerva's most popular policies when he became emperor. Up to his reign, the free allotment of grain given to the poor citizens of the Italian peninsula wasn't a standardized, guaranteed thing. Nerva established a lending scheme where people could borrow money from the state at a 5% interest rate, and this interest would be used to fund this grain dole, making it one of the very first recorded instances of a state-sponsored regular welfare system. At this time, the Roman economy was prospering. Its armies kept the borders safe, the empire had reached a favorable equilibrium. All it needed was the political stability Domitian failed to provide, and Nerva, at least in the beginning of his reign, seemed to be well on his way of providing the empire with a level-headed, conscientious emperor. But the thing is, Nerva was too benign, to the point of him being a pushover. The authoritarian excesses of Domitian gave way to pretty much political anarchy within the Senate, as powerful senators noticed this lack of danger that was represented by Domitian, and they just began going after their political enemies and abusing their power. Not only that, Nerva also managed to piss off the army. Now that is bad. When a new emperor came to power, he was supposed to give an important donative to the troops, a bribe basically, in order to secure their loyalty. It seems like Nerva was a little bit too stingy with his gift. Also, Domitian was very well liked by the soldiers. When the Praetorian Guard demanded that Nerva executed Domitian's assassins and he refused, now that was just too much for them. If Nerva was to continue being emperor, he had to pick an heir immediately, and it better be someone coming from the military. Fortunately for the Romans, Nerva picked Trajan, a man that would become one of Rome's most successful emperors and a very popular general with the troops. With the adoption of Trajan, the troops that were in the verge of mutiny calmed down and once more supported Nerva. They knew the old man wouldn't be around for very long, and soon they would have one of their best generals in charge of the empire. It was perfect for them. So here's another Denarius of Nerva, also struck in 97 AD at the Mint of Rome. This one celebrates the harmony between the emperor and the army. Let's have a closer look. On the obverse, we have once more the laureate bust of the emperor looking right, although in this example Nerva doesn't have the huge nose like in the previous example. The obverse, once again, spells out his regnal name: Imperator Nerva Caesar Augustus Pontifex Maximus Tribunicia Potestas Iterum Consul Tertium Pater Patriae. As for the reverse, we have the legends: Concordia Exercitum, the harmony of the army, the harmony within the army, and the design at the center reinforces this idea. We have two clasped hands, a show of unity, and behind them an aquilifer, the main standard of a legion, with the imperial eagle at the top. And at the bottom, we have the prow of a ship, representing the Roman imperial navy. Very cool reverse, and one of my favorites for Nerva's relatively short coinage series. And as everyone was expecting, just a couple of months after adopting Trajan, Nerva died from a stroke in late January 98 AD. Trajan assumed the position of emperor without incidents, and Nerva was deified by his new adoptive son. Up to this point, a lot of you might be wondering why someone like Nerva received such praise from his contemporaries and from historians. The man is really considered like one of the great emperors. And the thing is, as I said previously, sometimes the best thing a person can do at their job is not messing things up. This was Nerva's job. He was a figurehead. He was a symbol of a time of change in Rome's political system. A change from something akin to a hereditary monarchy under the Flavians, with all of the shortcomings of monarchies when a person without the mental toughness comes to power, like Domitian, who clearly wasn't emotionally fit for the position of emperor, to a system of an elective monarchy, where the upper echelons of the Roman aristocracy and the army, provided the emperor with the next 4 emperors who were very competent, enlightened monarchs, educated with the best education Romans could provide from childhood due to their privileged position in society. So here is, for example, a coin of Marcus Aurelius, the last of these good emperors. Nerva was the face of this transition. Without Nerva, we likely wouldn't have a Marcus Aurelius, we wouldn't have a Hadrian, and for that, history thanked Nerva with a great reputation. So, to celebrate the Nerva's short but important reign, let's look at just one last coin of him. Nothing that special about this one, just an example of a bronze coin. This is a provincial coin of him, struck at the eastern province of Syria at the city of Antioch, also in 97 AD. The East used a different set of denominations compared to the coin struck at the imperial mints. So this coin is likely an obol or a diobol, a fraction of the silver drachma. But it is also remarkably similar to the as denomination struck at Rome, so an imperial denomination, with a similar weight and legends in Latin. So we could be looking at an imperial attempt at bringing the imperial system to an important province such as Syria in a way to standardize the commerce between both regions. Pretty cool. On the obverse, we have once again the bust of Nerva with the legends in Latin. Imperator, Caesar, Nerva Augustus, Consul Tertium. Later emperors would resume striking coins with Greek legends in Antioch, so maybe their attempt of unifying coinage of Rome and Syria, it looks like this attempt failed. As for the reverse, we have a big laurel wreath, the symbol of imperial glory, and the letters SC for Senatus Consulto, or by decree of the Senate. It was basically a statement from the Roman state that despite this coin containing no precious metal value in it, it was, by decree, by law, part of the monetary standard and had to be accepted as legal tender in transactions, as people were always, it's more of a historical thing, like people were always distrustful of coins that had no precious metal in it, so they had to put the weight of the law over their acceptance of the coin. Like, you have to accept this coin by force. Of course, this was a relatively small sum of money, and with one of those, you could only realistically buy low-value items, such as food or very simple manufactured goods. And here we have him, Nerva, the first of the 5 good emperors. Have you got a coin of this emperor? Let us know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Leave a like and consider subscribing if you did. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.